Hi there guys, and welcome to my first video about Train Sim 2019. Okay, the interesting bit about TS 2019, as we've been told already, this thing is going 64-bit. This has been sort of the war cry of the TS community for years. Years and years and years and years and years. Now I could go in and waffle on about why I want it to be 64-bit, and I will get to that. But we're going to cover what Dovetail have said first of all. These guys are the guys doing it anyway, so let's start with that. And then we'll pick out bits and pieces and talk about what I think is going to be a good bit, is there any bad bits, what to expect, what not to expect. Dovetail cover it pretty much perfectly, so yes, if you've read this, you probably don't need to watch this video. But if you've read it and don't understand some bits of it, I might be able to help you understand some bits of it more. I don't know the ins and outs of the absolute technicalities of it. I understand the difference in 32-bit and 64-bit, but I couldn't tell you the ins and outs. This video just covers basically what they've said, what I think of it, and what I'm looking forward to with 64-bit Train Sim, really. So, as per the single biggest feature request for Train Simulator since it came to market all those years ago, we're excited to announce that Train Simulator 2019 will include Train Simulator 64-bit. Woohoo! We've put together some points below to explain more about what this means, and we're sure you'll have lots of questions once you've been through this article, and we'll answer these in the forums as they come up. Why 64-bit? Well, there are several reasons why we're doing 64-bit. One of those reasons is that we've received lots of feedback from you asking this feature to become reality. The first of the two biggest reasons are that Train Simulator World continues to grow and develop. We want to ensure that Train Simulator will be able to stand alongside it and continue to go for many more years to come. Many of you are proud of the extensive collections you've built up, and you've invested many hundreds of hours into Train Simulator, try thousands and thousands of pounds. And so the best possible thing we can do to ensure your collections continue to be accessible and playable well into the future, particularly as computers are always moving forward. The second reason is purely to do with stability. When running the more detailed and advanced content we're seeing today, we've seen developers really pushing the limits of what Train Simulator can do. So to ensure that Train Simulator can operate with this type of highly detailed and advanced content moving forward, it needs to gain access to more system resources and ensure it can remain stable and functional. That's the bottom line of it. Doesn't tell you the in-depth, but we'll get to that bit. So what exactly is 64-bit? Essentially, 64-bit processor can store more computational values, including memory addresses, which means it's able to access over 4 billion times the physical memory of a 32-bit processor. 64-bit processors are to 32-bit processors what modern high-speed trains are to steam engines. That's a bit of a not brilliant analogy, but it is kind of. For all intents and purposes, they do exactly the same thing, but one does it more efficiently and with less limitations than the other. That's kind of true. So what will 64-bit do for Train Simulator? The introduction of 64-bit will essentially mean that Train Simulator will have access to all the available memory your computer has to offer. If you have lots of memory, 16GB or more, the software may be more stable overall. Please note how they're saying this, right? The software may be more stable overall, as it will be less limited by the hard 4GB limit, 2GB on a 32-bit computer, that all 32-bit allocations are limited by. What this means is that Train Sim basically, all it can use is the two. If you had a 32-bit set of Windows on a 32-bit computer, it could only use 2GB. On a 64-bit computer with 4GB of RAM, you could use 4GB of RAM, but you'd also have to be running Windows in there as well. So you'd be cutting the amount of RAM you can use down. RAM is random, is allocated memory. So basically what it means is that it stores what it needs to run in your RAM, and means that it can load in things faster than it would be pulling it from the hard drive all the time. Alright, so the core engine runs in your RAM and sits there and pulls bits off the hard drive into the RAM as it needs to put it out to your graphics card and then to your monitor faster. This means that Train Simulator, you can do more AI trains in scenario, have longer route with more detailed scenery throughout, and even more advanced trains than and that have more complicated functionality. Overall, it helps Train Simulator to be more efficient with how it manages and uses data. Bottom line of it, it may mean, as it said, that we will get longer routes, more detail. Trains like the Armstrong Powerhouse 205 and things like that, you'll be able to have loads of them in scenarios. You'll be able to have detailed scenarios, proper scenarios with proper stock in sidings and yards, proper timetabled scenarios with the correct trains running in and out without getting out of memory error dumps. What won't 64-bit do? There are many myths about the benefits of 64-bit over 32-bit, and there is one that everybody thinks of when they think about 64-bit, and that is that it will magically improve graphics and frame rates. The reality is that 64-bit won't do anything to improve your graphics in Train Simulator. There may be a very slight improvement in the frame rates that's simply due to the unrestricted efficiency of how data is being managed, but it won't give you any improvements that you will notice visually. The graphics will look exactly the same as you've been used to, since it still uses DirectX 9, and it will work in exactly the same way, if not a little smoother than before. So this is what I've been saying all the way through with 64-bit thing. It is the holy grail in the fact that we'll be able to play more scenarios, but it's not a graphical engine enhancement. So it's not going to improve graphics. As they've said in here, the way Train Sim loads routes is it does it in tiles. So every mile or so, every couple of miles, there's a tile. And on that tile, there are so many assets, so trains, track, scenery, sounds. And each of those has to be loaded into the RAM before it's visually produced to you. With having use of all the RAM and all the pathways to the RAM, it should mean that what we call tile loading stutter is slightly reduced. Now what that means is your frame rates won't improve, but you might not get any big dips in the frame rates when loading tiles. You'll still get dips in frame rates from lots of scenery, but you won't get the tile loading stutter, hopefully, or that should be massively reduced at least. That's what we're hoping. Will Train Sim run any better on my 64-bit Windows XP computer from 2005? It might do, but we'd not recommend that. We recommend that you have a computer that is more recent, that has a 64-bit processor and 64-bit edition of Windows 7 Service Pack 1 or newer. The more memory your computer has installed, the greater your chances that you'll see benefits that 64-bit will bring. If your computer only has 4 gig of system memory, then you won't be able to see any tangible benefits at all. Okay, that is very true. So there's a lot of people out there that are playing on a 64-bit system, but still only have 4 gigs of RAM, mainly laptops. You're not going to notice anything if you've only got 4 gigs of RAM. What if I own a state-of-the-art computer that I bought last week which has lots of memory? Then you'll find your computer is perfect for getting the most out of 64-bit Train Simulator. However, we should point out that you absolutely do not need to have the latest graphics, the latest, greatest computer. In fact, if you've been playing Train Simulator quite happily for weeks, months, years, it's likely you already have what you need. Most new computers sold within the last 10 years are potentially 64-bit capable. That's pretty much the entire lifetime of Train Simulator. You'll just need to check you have a 64-bit processor and a 64-bit edition of Windows 7 Service Pack 1, 8.1, Windows 10 installed. Alright, so that is something you will need to have. So we get lots of messages about the last thing. I only have 32-bit computer right now. Does this mean I won't be able to play Train Simulator anymore? Not going to read all that. No, you'll still be able to play 32-bit. What if I own a laptop notebook? Will I be able to run 64-bit on there? Okay, answer's very similar, but we'll go through it. The answer to this is exactly the same as it's always been for 32-bit. Train Simulator might work on mobile versions of hardware, but we cannot guarantee or support these types of configuration. Mobile computers, the posh way of saying laptop or notebook, are essentially designed to operate at lower power thresholds and have lower heat tolerances, so therefore they're more prone to become less than what they appear to be when they throttle. So that's a technical term to describe when a device slows itself down to avoid using power to save battery charge or limiting damage that could be caused by excessive heat. It is for this very reason that any performance issues related to mobile computers cannot be supported. If you find Train Sim it works perfectly fine on your laptop or notebook, then great. If it doesn't, then you'll most likely need to think about upgrading something more powerful and moving to a desktop equivalent. Lots of people run Train Simulator on laptops and have no issues. Thermal throttling is the big issue with Train Simulator and mobile gaming. It does. There was a couple of guys at the stream meet in Crew that were running it on a Windows Surface. That was quite cool to see. It actually was alright. It was quite good. I quite liked that. What will happen to my route and train collection? Will I need to do anything to make it 64-bit compatible? Absolutely nothing. will happen to your content. It will continue to work in 32-bit and will also work in 64-bit too. There is nothing you need to do. Train Simulator 64-bit will just work with all your content from 32-bit, and some of it might even be more stable overall. Though we'll need to monitor this, and you can help us by telling us how you're getting along. So that's an important bit, and I'll come to this as we get going. We've still got a little bit more to go. So what about the tools and all the Train Simulator features that are used to make content? Are they going to be 64-bit versions of these? Short answer to this is yes. The root editor within Train Simulator will automatically work as part of the core software upgrade to 64-bit. Other tools such as the blueprint editor will also receive a 64-bit upgrade to ensure those who make content for Train Simulator are not limited by the system resource limits. Is there anything else I need to know about 64-bit? Just one thing. We really need your feedback to assess how 64-bit is going. If you experience problems with Train Simulator 64-bit, we need your cooperation in reporting problems directly to us via customer support so we can keep track of it all. We'll add new options to customer support forms so you can tell us your feedback is related to 64-bit. That's, Joe, what? Hands down, Dovetail Games, well done. I'm praising you guys a bit too much recently. I might have to do a bad video soon. That's a lie. I do have a Train Sim World one with a German thing coming up that I'm not that impressed with. Moving on. This is really good. Dovetail is saying we'll listen. Dovetail have got a really bad reputation for not listening to feedback. And what they've shown us over the last couple of months, especially with the 64-bit even announcement, is that they're beginning to listen. Portsmouth Direct Line stuff, they listen to a lot of the feedback from that. Not a lot's been changed yet. The Pendolino had lots of issues. It got one fix, didn't really fix anything. So they're trying, is what I'm saying. So if we can keep going with the feedback, fingers crossed, we could have a very, very smooth, very, very nice 64-bit version of Train Simulator. That's what we're all after. I'm not going to worry about all of this. We'll go through the summary and then I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to in 64-bit Train Sim, and then I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your day. So in summary, we're adding 64-bit to Train Sim at 2019 for everyone. You'll need a 64-bit computer with a 64-bit operating system to run it. 64-bit means you can do more in Train Simulator, but it won't run on every computer out there. We're not taking 32-bit away. You'll still be able to play this for the foreseeable future as you don't have if you don't have the computer to run it. All of your content will work in 32-bit and 64-bit in exactly the same way. Okay, very, very clear about that. We need your feedback on how well 64-bit is working for you via our customer support site. Alright, so there's the DTG blurb. My blurb. What this basically means, and a lot of you will have seen Speedy Pete's full sort of route maps and everything like that. What this is going to mean is we can have full routes. So full run of East Coast Mainline, full run of West Coast Mainline. We can start merging routes together. Speedy Pete's worked out a really cool program that basically helps him to merge routes that start on different coordinates. There is loads of really cool things actually happening at the moment. My real hope for it is that we'll see Dovetail pull out the stops with some nice route extensions, or all of the trains will become sort of Pro Series, and we'll be looking at, like we have had recently, where you've got quite highly scripted, well-made, well-made's a bit strong, highly scripted, detailed trains is what I'm looking at. Graphical wise, I mean, DirectX 9, you're going to run it on basically anything, so 8K textures on trains won't then take up too much RAM, which means you can have lots of very, very pretty trains. Sidings will be full of stock like they are in real life, and it will look like it does in real life. Timetabled scenarios can have the right train at the right time without having to cut bits out, because you know you're going to hit the out of memory limit. The big key comes with dumps, and let's get on to dumps. What causes Train Sim to dump? A dump, or a crash to desktop, is Train Sim's way of going, beep you. It is saying, I am done. You have done something I don't like. I can't handle it. Train Sim, the engine itself, is actually very good at dealing with errors. It doesn't throw you out of the game for nothing. And lots of people are going to go, yes, it does it all the time. No, it actually doesn't. It's actually very good at dealing with it. You put a geo in wrong, it still loads scenario, it just doesn't have the carriage in there. There are lots of things that Train Sim does that it couldn't do, if you know what I mean. If it didn't do them, it would be a lot worse. So it does handle errors already incredibly well. The most irritating one that we all face, well, I say we all face because there's going to be that one person out there that goes, train sim never dumped for me. The thing we hit all the time is the out of memory error. And that is when scenarios use too many resources and it goes over they say 4 gig limit. It's usually about 3.8 when train sim goes and dies. So once your scenarios, you put 3.8 gigs of data into the RAM, train sim can no longer handle it and it dumps, it crashes to desktop, or just says dump, temp dump, tells you the version of train sim. There are several types of dump. There are vertex error, buffer errors. There are out of memory errors. There's loads, and the some dumps just come up dump. What will this hopefully get rid of is the out of memory errors. That's basically it. It will not get rid of dumps that are caused by bad scripting, badly installed DLC. You've gone into your files and moved something that the game needs and now it can't find. It isn't going to cure that. It is not going to stop dumps. All right, it's going to cut them down drastically, fingers crossed, but it is not going to stop dumps happening. Not all dumps are memory related. That's very clear. Now, for those of you that say you've never had dumps or anything like that, that's fine. I run my TS at a very high level, with my settings at a very high level, with an incredible amount of DLC already installed, freeware, payware, you name it, third party, first party. My install folder is over, I think at the moment with it cut down is about 380 gigs. On top of that, I run with my graphics high because I've got a graphics card that can handle it. Lots of people out there that go, oh, I never get any dumps. And they say, oh, right, oh, okay, where'd you run it at? Oh, I run it with dynamic lighting off. I run it with EFX sounds off. I run it in no multi-sampling, no anti-aliasing stuff. I run it bare bones. Well, good for you if that's how you run it. You're probably not going to get any dumps because you're not asking it to do anything bigger than it already did. Train sim, as we know, has been going for 10 years. Dynamic lighting came in with TSX. When you used to be able to switch TSX on and off in the settings. You can't anymore. I think it's just called dynamic lighting. So this was a feature that was added in to Train Sim along the way. So we were asking an awful lot of the core engine already. But if you turn all those things off, you're basically running a 10-year-old game, probably on 5-year-old hardware, 2-year-old hardware, sometimes 1-year-old hardware, sometimes less. So it's not the same for everybody. And this is why I think it's really important that they're saying we need feedback, because they do want the feedback. They want to know if it's working for you that's still running a retro 10-year-old computer and running fine with XP on it. Cool. And if you're running a super duper SLI 1080 rig, are you having an issue with it? I've known Train Sim, even in people with certain settings, to run exactly the same settings on a really high powerful graphics card and somebody that's got a slightly lower version of that graphics card to only have 5-10 frames difference. So it is a fickle beast. Train Simulator is fickle. When we all start playing with installing new things and everything like that, if you're not that good at installing things, you can mess it up. You can mess bits up with doing it if you're not careful. I mean, it's pretty easily rectified, but it can happen. It happens to me all the time. I'll be midstream and somebody go, I've got a scenario, and I'll be in the game and I'll be on my other monitor flicking about and I'll copy everything all in and all that, and then I'll go to run, it won't be there, and it's because I've copied a bit over to the wrong folder, and then I'm stuck with this folder that might be 20-30 megs sitting in a folder it shouldn't be. Now at the end of the stream, I'll never remember to go back and clean that out, so I end up with a massively bulked up install with loads of files in places they shouldn't be. So for me, it's all the time. That's why I need to do lots of reinstalls and things like that. So the bottom line of this all is longer routes, better scenery, trains that are going to be, we can add more features into trains and still have more of them on the tracks. What it will not do is improve the graphics. It will not improve your top rate frame rate. It may improve loading time stutters. So tile loading stutters, it may improve, like we said, but it won't improve your graphics overall. I hope this has answered some of your questions. If you do have any questions, head over to the Facebook group and ask me them, because if you do it in the YouTube comments, it's really hard to keep track of what's going on. So head over to the Facebook group. It's linked in the description below. grab me on there, grab all the other very knowledgeable people on there, and they will be able to help you out with any questions you have regarding 64-bit TS. Also, heading over to the Dovetail Games website, because this, funnily enough, is actually really well written. I quite like it. It answers most of your questions anyway. But there's also the Dovetail forums. I don't tend to look on there. I will have a look and see what's going on about it now. The big question that you're all going to be asked is, when is this due? If this was coming out in September, like most train simulator upgrades, I would have expected to see a bit more hype about it now. My hunch is this is going to be October, November time. I hope it's no later than that, but that is what I'm estimating at the moment. That's not from any official source or anything else. That's just from my years of knowing how Dovetail sort of release stuff, and years of having the upgrades and things like that. And it's usually about September, but we'd have seen masses more hype about it by now. So it could be very late September. It's usually like 20-something September. I'd expect it to have seen more hype already. So I'm going to go for October, November. I hope I'm wrong and it's earlier, but I hope I'm not any sooner than it actually is. Once again, guys, thanks ever so much for watching and listening to me waffle on. I will catch you next time.